What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college basketball. It is Tuesday, March the 25th. Today we have a blend of CBI and NIT. But before we get started, I want to thank anyone who has subscribed, left a comment, liked a video. It does mean a lot. And we recently got all the way to just 111 subs away from the 1,000 mark. So thank you if you've done any of that. It does help a ton. All right, let's dive into the games. First and foremost, a couple things with the CBI. These are being played on a neutral site. The NIT is still being played at home sites. And I think you can take an under in all four games today. I'm just going to say that right away. There's a lot of leans on the screen. I think there's a decent chance I do take all four unders, but we'll dive into them and kind of rank them accordingly. We'll kick things off with Chattanooga taking on Bradley. This game has a 3-point spread in favor of Bradley. It's a 152 total. I can tell you right away, this would be a higher spread if Bradley was at full strength. Really, both teams are not at full strength. Chattanooga's best player, arguably Frank Champion's been out for a while. Bradley lost Darius Hannah, Zach Montgomery, and Almer Atlason. All three of them missed their last game, except for Hannah, but he's been ruled out publicly. So it's going to be a skeleton crew for Bradley in Chattanooga without their best player, which sets up a pretty weird game overall. Chattanooga did beat Middle Tennessee and Dayton to begin the NIT. They absolutely demolished Dayton inside and generated 19 fouls. In the regular season, they went 1-4 against the top 100. The only win they did have against the top 100 all year was actually in the postseason against Dayton, who did not have Posh Alexander. They did play Indiana to single digits, but that was about it for Chattanooga as far as good stuff on the resume. They lost twice outside the top 200 to Austin Peay and Mercer. Bradley comes in at number 91 overall. Chattanooga was 101, just for reference. They beat North Alabama and George Mason to get here. They went 3-3 against the top 100 this year, beat San Francisco, Drake, and George Mason, although they did not have Woody Newton. They lost outside the top 105 times, and their worst loss came against Illinois Chicago. They just keep taking on water with these injuries and absences, and it's a weird time of year to be playing in the postseason, especially one the teams clearly don't value. And it's really hard to handicap a game like this. I'm not even sure we know all of the injury stuff. From the stylistics, this game should be slow. Chattanooga is 215th in pace. Bradley's 258th. As far as height, Chattanooga's 178th. They are 228th in rebounding. Bradley's 53rd in effective height, 123rd in rebounding. But both teams mainly have lost players in the front court. All those injuries we talked about up at the top, most of those players are on the taller end and playing forwards, wing positions. So the height stuff is particularly tricky. Chattanooga can really shoot the ball, though. 12th in effective field goals, 7th in two-point percent, 36th in three-point percent. Hunter Huff is still playing, at least to this point. He is a 42.5% three-point shooter on 264 attempts. Bradley comes in 107th in total defense, 36th inside, 90th defending the three. So it's a pretty tough matchup for Chattanooga on offense. But I will say Darius Hannah and Zach Montgomery were two of the top defenders on this Bradley team, so perhaps the avenues are a little more open for Chattanooga. On the other side, Bradley is 8th in effective field goal percent, 59th from two, 1st in three-point percent. And of the remaining players on the team, Duke Dean hits 38% of his threes. Christian Davis hits 46.2%. You lost another 39% shooter in Atlason. So, I mean, it's definitely not a full-strength Bradley team. I would not put them first overall in three-point percent at this capacity, but still a good shooting team overall. Chattanooga is 262nd in total defense, 144th inside, 271st in three-point defense. As far as some of the periphery stuff, turnover margin does favor Chattanooga. They outrank Bradley 43 to 188th in turnovers committed. Foul margin doesn't really project to play a major role. As you can see on the screen, we have this right about the -3. I think that might be a little generous in favor of Bradley. We make this around -5 when you exclude the injuries, just both teams at full strength. But then you have to remove Hannah, Montgomery, Atlason, and then for Chattanooga, it's Champion. but 3-1, and we're talking two extremely good players on the Bradley side. That brings us to a Chattanooga plus a 3 as the lean. I think the under is in play because of all of the absences in the game, but this is my least favorite under of the 4 games we'll talk about today. So this one just firmly a lean. We'll talk about it in Discord. On that briefly, if you're interested, we project every game, sides, totals, player projections for all the major games. That's points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, minutes, you name it. We are doing this, no long-term commitments, $10 a week, $30 a month. If you're interested, check it out. Link is below. Appreciate anyone that has done so. North Texas takes on Oklahoma State. 1-point spread in favor of Oklahoma State, a 138.5 total. Only injury in the game is Marcellus Avery for OK State. He's not a huge contributor to this team. Still worth noting. North Texas comes in number 71 overall. They knocked off Furman and Arkansas State to get here. Went 4-6 against the top 100 this year. Their best win was against Arkansas State at 84. Also knocked off Minnesota, Oregon State, and UAB. Lost outside the top 100 twice to UTSA and Temple. So a lot of what they were expected to do, not really overachieving in any way once they got to the top of their league. Oklahoma State comes in 93rd overall. They knocked off Wichita State and SMU without Boopy Miller to get here. They went 1-9 against the top 50. Their lone win in the top 50 came against SMU in their most recent game, again, without their best player. They lost outside the top 100 one time to FAU at 114. These resumes just sort of encapsulate the difference in leagues. The Big 12 is a lot better top to bottom than the American. So with Oklahoma State, yeah, they went 1-9 in the top 50, but right away you could actually do a top 50 ranking for this team. Whereas North Texas, you had to use top 100, and they only went 4-6 against that competition. So yeah, Oklahoma State's more battle-tested, even if a lot of those came with losses. But this is a big clash in styles now. North Texas is 362nd in pace. Oklahoma State is 16th. As far as height goes, I think this is going to be pretty neutral. Maybe a slight advantage in North Texas's direction. They're 105th in effective height, 49th in rebounding. Oklahoma State comes in 194th in effective height, 169th in rebounding, but they play a pretty deep rotation. North Texas can also shoot the ball. They're 106th in effective field goal. Most of that coming from their three-point percent, 64th in the country. Most of that coming from Atten Wright, who hits 40% of his threes. North Texas, they don't shoot a ton of threes. They're only 230th in three-point rate. But Oklahoma State comes in 68th in total defense, 281st inside, 263rd defending the three. You can do a lot against this defense. On the other side, Oklahoma State is 295th in effective field goal, 291st in two-point percent, and 202nd in three-point percent. But North Texas, the strength of their team is on defense, 54th in total D, 58th inside, 19th defending the perimeter. On the periphery, both teams do force a lot of turnovers, but North Texas outranks Oklahoma State 150 to 289 in turnovers committed. So you have a slightly more reckless team in Oklahoma State that should favor North Texas a little bit. Foul margin looks pretty identical to that, actually, with North Texas outranking Oklahoma State 198th to 315th in turnovers committed. Both teams are fairly deep in terms of their rotation, but Oklahoma State comes in really deep. This team is 9th in the country in bench minutes. North Texas is 160th. But if you're putting someone on the line, I would rather have North Texas shooting my free throws. They're 24th in free throw percent to OK State at 188th. The real reason we see the gap in projection for this game comes down to level of competition. Oklahoma State is about a 1.5-point favorite for us. We make this minus 1.4. However, I'm seeing money pour on Oklahoma State. I think this moves to minus 1.5 in the market. And just looking at all the stylistic advantages, I do have some interest in North Texas, especially considering a lot of their players are some down transfers like Rondell Walker. They have some talented players on their team. I might end up on a North Texas side of things in this particular game. Also, this is my, I guess, if I were ranking all of the unders I'm interested in this game, this would be third, with Bradley Chattanooga being fourth among the 4 games we have today. But man, North Texas is the third slowest team in the entire country. They're just going to halt this to a snail's pace. And as we've talked about before, these slower teams have a much easier time dictating pace compared to the fast teams. But we'll hold out on this one, see where it goes. throughout the day and potentially play a North Texas and an under. Before we move on, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to play in most areas. All right, Incarnate Word faces Illinois State. Incarnate Word played yesterday. The CBI has a really weird structure. Somehow Illinois State didn't play. Don't ask me about the ins and outs of this structure, but that's what happened. Incarnate Word is now a 6-point dog to Illinois State with a 149 total. Layman Salabali did not play for Incarnate Word yesterday. Illinois State has a clean bill of health, at least to this point. We see a lot of injuries pop up. We'll talk about them in the next game, but at least worth noting, NIT CBI, keep your hand near your phone or your computer as these games are tipping off so you get this news and get it accurately. As far as resumes, Incarnate Word just beat Manhattan, and then they knocked off Jacksonville. They went 2-11 in the top 200 this year. Their best wins were against Lamar and Southeastern Louisiana in conference. They lost outside the top 200 5 times. The worst one came against Houston Christian at 272. That puts Incarnate Word at number 224 overall. Pretty good jump in the power rankings after yesterday's performance against Jacksonville. They won that game 87-71. Illinois State was off. They beat Presbyterian on Sunday. They beat that team 78-70. In the regular season, Illinois State went 11-12 against the top 200, so a lot more opportunities. They actually had 2 wins in the top 100 over UAB and Bradley. Both those teams 98-91, so the bottom end of the top 100, but top 100 nonetheless. They lost outside the top 200 twice to Tennessee Martin and Evansville, but that puts this team at 137 overall. They're also the healthier team. This is a slow game, but on both sides, Incarnate Word is 330th in tempo. Illinois State is 273rd, without much differentiation between this season-long mark and what they did in conference play. Both these teams remain slow. Incarnate Word is 214th in effective height, 113th in rebounding. Illinois State is 292nd in effective height, 172nd in rebounding. But it's a big clash of styles here. Incarnate Word's rebounding rank is driven from their offensive boarding, but then Illinois State doesn't rebound on offense. Instead, they attack the defensive glass and get back in transition. They're 10th in defensive rebounding, so it's a strength on strength in this situation, which probably mitigates what Incarnate Word can do on the glass, getting second chance opportunities, which is pretty important for them because they're only 153rd in effective field goal, 202nd in two-point percent. They are decent at shooting threes, 83rd overall there, but they don't take a lot of them, 259th in three-point rate. But that's an important matchup in this game and probably their best path to actually scoring on Illinois State. And they have options. Jalen Anderson, Davion Bailey, Dylan Heyman all shoot at least 37% from three. And the reason this is a potential avenue is Illinois State is 313th defending the three. Illinois State is basically a shootout team. They're outside the top 200 in total defense, but outside the top 300 defending the three. But the reason they are here is they can really score themselves. 19th in effective field goal, 17th in two-point percent, 36th in three-point percent. Johnny Kinziger, Malachi Poindexter, Jack Doherty all shoot at least 38% from three. Incarnate Word is even worse on defense than Illinois State. 291st in total D, 180th inside, 320th defending the perimeter. You also have some peripheral advantages for Illinois State. Turnovers committed. Incarnate Word is 221. Illinois State is 86. Both teams get into foul trouble. But if you look at fouls generated on defense, Illinois State generates more. They're also the much better free throw shooting team. They're 82nd in free throw percent. They also play the deeper bench. So your absences are a little less impactful on the Illinois State side. Incarnate Word, for fouling as much as they do, they're 299th in bench minutes and 311th in free throw percent. This is one where we actually make inside the spread just barely. But I think if you were going to IKB a spread today, it's this Illinois State game, taking them against Incarnate Word, who had to play yesterday. Again, Illinois had a day off somehow. The much better conference, Illinois plays in that. So this is one we're going to sit and wait and debate throughout the day. And as far as the under goes, I still think you can play it. These teams are so slow. The only worry you have is getting buried by the solid shooting on both sides. Last up, Cleveland State takes on Florida Gulf Coast. This is an under we did play at 140. And the only major injuries are on the Florida Gulf Coast side. So Barno hadn't played in weeks for this team. We were expecting him to miss. he suits up, but instead they lose two guys, Rory Stewart and Xavier McLean. McLean's actually a very good player for this team, so it was a weird injury report for Florida Gulf Coast. Cleveland State actually had their entire team. Reese Robinson returned. He hadn't played for weeks, so it was a very weird run out for both of these teams on the injury front, but now I think we have a better grasp of it. Just be aware these CBI games are always going to have weird nuances with injuries. So yesterday, Florida Gulf Coast beats Army in a game I don't think they were really trying because of the players that didn't suit up, and they only won by 3 points, and Army ranks 317th overall in the country. It's a very weird game. Florida Gulf Coast 4-10 against the top 200. Best win is FAU or North Alabama. They lost outside the top 200 4 times, the worst of which came to Austin Peay at 280. Cleveland State, full body of work. Clean bill of health. They rank 151st overall. Defeated Queens to open the CBI yesterday. They went 6-9 against the top 200 this year. Best wins were against Robert Morris in Milwaukee. Lost outside the top 200 3 times. The worst of which was against Morehead State, which was very much a blip on the radar, but losing to the 327th ranked team is still a bit of an issue. This is another slow game. Cleveland State 277th in tempo, Florida Gulf Coast 290th. Not much variation between the season-long pace and the conference pace, so we should be expecting this to be slow, especially with Florida Gulf Coast down a bunch of players. As far as some of these stylistics, Cleveland State is 219th in effective height, 195th in rebounding. Florida Gulf Coast is 293rd in effective height, 62nd in rebounding. But this is a lot of strength on strength as well. Cleveland State relies on the offensive glass. They're 34th. Florida Gulf Coast is an excellent defensive rebounding team. They're 35th. The opposite is true if you look at Florida Gulf Coast on offense, Cleveland State defensively for rebounding. Shooting stuff, Cleveland State cannot shoot. They are 259th in effective field goal, 241st inside, 238th from 3. But Florida Gulf Coast is 213th in total defense. Their best area of success is defending the inside, but that sets up a fairly neutral matchup. It's weakness on weakness for both of these teams. To the other side, Florida Gulf Coast is 59th in effective field goal percent, 63rd in 2-point percent, 71st in 3-point percent. The problem is they lost their best shooter, Rory Stewart. He was a 40% 3-point shooter. He just didn't play in their last game, so I'm not sure if we see him. They do have a few others around 36%. But the strength of Cleveland State is their defense. They are 110th, 129th inside, 222nd defending the 3. Again, if you want to beat them, the best place is shooting over the top. How does that work without Florida Gulf Coast best shooter? I don't know. In the periphery, Cleveland State is 8th in turnovers forced. Florida Gulf Coast isn't so bad with turnovers committed. They're 108th, but perhaps that's a small edge for Cleveland State. And then Cleveland State can definitely get into foul trouble, but Florida Gulf Coast doesn't generate them, so that should set up another fairly neutral matchup in this game. With the injuries, we just make this pretty clearly in favor of Florida Gulf Coast, but the best position to take is the under 140 mathematically. We're making it well below that, closer to 135, and this will be the best play of the day. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back perhaps tonight, probably tomorrow morning, with the first of the Sweet 16, as well as whatever NIT CBI crown is starting soon, whatever makes sense for that. But thank you for sticking around. I appreciate you. We will see you again soon. Good luck.